Turn the heat up.
Turn the heat up. Yeah, it's still going to be extremely warm.
And I'm not going to be like all these guys in the truck.
No, you have to get really out of the fight days.
Listen to the ones you have to time and listen to.
We got a prelude.
When a guy like me says that, that's telling me.
Hey, I'll give you some numbers when I
So you're going to roll it yeah. Good to see you.
We're good here.
Now, one day you're going to have to figure out how to use
Ooh, Mike, do you have the information from Margaret's?
I just looked it up. I think it's in my cell phone.
Okay, I was going to say, I thought she was going to be here, so I didn't look it up. All right. Hey. Welcome to First Universalist of New Madison on this sunny fall day. It feels like fall now. How many people saw the eclipse?
On TV.
On TV? I'll put my picture up on the Facebook page. I happened to be in Wayne Lakes. It was cloudy, and the clouds kind of slightly obscured the sun so you could look at it without blinding yourself, and you could see the little disc on the side, and I got a picture of it, so I'll post that up. I should have put it on for here, but I didn't have time to do it. So
April's a big chance.
yes, there'll be an actual total eclipse, I think, in April. This was the sun was like this, and there was just a little tiny disc on the edge.
Crescent moon shape.
Yeah, but you could see the edge of it. It was still kind of interesting. Any announcements?
I'm still looking.
Okay, we're going to make an announcement. I thought Margaret might be here today. Margaret, the concerts are starting again.
There it is.
Okay.
The Sinclair Concert Band and Wind Symphony will present a free concert on Sunday, October 22nd, which is next Sunday, and it's at 2 p.m. at Blair Hall Theater, and that's Building 2, Blair Hall Theater, Building 2, and it is at 2 o'clock. And it's in Sinclair, obviously, College in downtown Dayton. She says, Margaret tells us the selections for performing are awesome and enjoyable because the theme is symphonic dance. It includes a wide variety from American marches to polka and fugue to Leonard Bernstein's Fancy Free. I hope you all can make it. Thanks much, Margaret. So that's next Sunday.
Next Sunday, it's really nice that that's a really large part of Margaret's life, so we're really, really happy that Margaret can get back to doing something that she finds really fulfilling, and it's a joy for the rest of us.
Concert Band and Wind Symphony.
Concert and wind, okay.
Roberta and I went to one of their combined concerts, I don't know, earlier this year, I think. It's a wonderful venue, and those are good musicians.
Yes.
It's just wonderful.
There are people who are really dedicated. We want to welcome Roberta back. Was gone for a couple weeks there. She thinks she had COVID, which is the flu that's going around. I got my shot 2 days ago, my 4th vaccination. I encourage you to do that. Even though we don't see much of it anymore, and you don't see people wearing masks anymore, the reoccurrence is starting to go up again. So it's still dangerous. It's still putting people in the hospital, and the number of occurrences and the number of incidents is going up and up again. So, all right. Any other announcements? Okay, our prelude is going to be in this sweet. What is it? In sweet of autumn. So I write it down, but I write it so fast I can't read it myself.
You read slower.
Or just ask them to do it. Don't even pretend. right, the chalice lighting. We need to. Today we're talking about Kenny went on the veterans trip from Dark County to Washington, D.C. and Shanksville, Pennsylvania. So he'll be speaking on his experiences. Everybody there took tons of pictures, but they aren't put together yet. So I had to pull pictures off the internet, which are not nearly as good as what the personal pictures were that they took. So we will repeat that again later. But I wanted to kind of bring this before you while it's fresh in everybody's mind. But this picture was on the veterans webpage, and we can see who that is. So at least we got Kenny on that one. There's a couple short. He's going to give this presentation, and I have a little short, like children's story type thing on the Pentagon, and another one on Flight 93 at Sharpsville, Pennsylvania. So they're not exactly what we would want, but they would give you an idea. So that's what we're considering today, is basically the remembrance of 9/11 and what's been done since then. And the chalice lighting is we light this chalice, which transforms wax into pure light and warmth to remind us of our own living, transforming the stuff of this world into love and the activity of our daily lives. As we remember 9/11, may today bring forth transformation in ourselves, from grief, healing, from memory, wholeness, and from celebration, love. Our opening hymn is number 53, I Walk the Unfrequented Road. Perfect fall hymn and kind of matches where we are today. The second verse, I filch the fruit of no one's toil, no trespasser am I, and yet I reap from every soil and from the boundless sky. Words to kind of pay attention to. All right, our affirmation kind of goes along with the veterans thing and also goes along with the problems we're having with our country and with politics throughout the world. We pray for our country's leaders May they lead with justice and fairness on their lips. May they hold in the highest esteem the value of human life and liberty. May they never forget those who elected them, nor those who did not. Many of us are worried, anxious, afraid. Who will uphold our basic human rights? Who will protect us from rollbacks on liberties? Who will lead us through the shadows? Who will remember us? Spirit of life and love, holy presence all around, embrace us with your wisdom and peace, surround us with reassurance, fill our hearts with purpose, empower us to do what is right. May our hearts be expanded as the time comes for us to comfort each other. May our minds be charged with creativity as we find our way forward. May our bodies remain well so we can travel to our state capitals or the line at the abortion clinic to escort someone to safety. May our spirits be guided by our values. May our lives speak, be they gentle and angry or loud and clear. May we remain united in our mission as a people of faith to connect deeply, grow together, and serve one another. Blessed be, may it be so. Amen. Joys and concerns? As is prominent in the news, Israel, 1,300 killed by Hamas. Women, children, some of the pictures, and they're actually showing some of the pictures now, babies being shot in their cribs, multiple bullet wounds, civilians shot down in the street, shot down in their houses. One interesting story, the Israeli woman, was cooking breakfast when 3 terrorists broke into her house. She didn't panic, she didn't scream, she offered them food. She offered them food, and they accepted. Except they made her taste everything first because they were afraid of being poisoned. But they let her live. What an odd thing in the midst of all that blood and carnage and terror and murder. That one aspect of reaching out and offering hospitality to your enemies had a reaction like that. All right, so we have a candle for Israel, and now actually our candle also is for Palestine, because Palestine is being pounded. The Israelis have told the Palestinians they have to leave, but they can't leave. And then they're just bombing the bejesus out of that place. And there's already 2,000 some hundred Palestinians killed. And on both sides, women and children are the primary victims. Women and children on both sides. I don't know what else to say. Anyone have anything?
Just, I guess, a welcome to fall, and we see the flowers up there, and this beautiful rose. They blessed us all summer with beauty and fragrance, something great to look at, and it's always kind of sad when I cut my geraniums down, and we normally don't make geranium bouquets, but that's what you see
Yes,
there.
really nice geranium bouquet here.
And beauty all summer long, and we'll look forward to, I guess, next year, and return of beauty, and enjoy the fall beauty into itself.
And I'm planting bulbs all along the retaining wall out here. There's daffodils and tulips, so don't mow them down when they come up in the spring. Actually, Roberta has brought her rose bush. That is the most amazing rose bush ever. It's still having blossoms in the middle of October. That's a blessing in itself. So we want to remember Derek, Pastor Derek, Reverend Derek. His partner, Jason's father, died. Remember, when he was here, we asked for a candle to be lit. He had fallen and broken his hip, and that's pretty much the ringing of the end times there. He's going to be there. Instead of being here the 22nd, he will be in Arizona for the funeral the 22nd. So, we will miss him then, but he will be back at a different time. Travel mercies for my wife. She is in Seattle. One of her students is being ordained as a minister. This is one of her students from years ago. So she was invited to go out, and she decided to take this time to do that. So I'm sure she's going to have a good time. She's got lots of friends at that church. The people there used to be in Ohio and have moved out to Seattle. So I'm sure she's looking forward to that. And today's her birthday. So I sent her a birthday card on Facebook, which gets me out of her present until she gets back. I got 2 weeks until I find a present. So anything else? Yes.
This is a joy. It's one of those simple, almost silly joys of life. But we carved our jack-o'-lanterns yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the 21st consecutive year since our older grandson Ash was a baby that we've gotten together to do jack-o'-lanterns. And when I thought about 21 years, it was just fun and special. And
Family is integral to all of our lives. And if you don't have a family, that's what the church family is for. If you don't have a family, we will try to be your family here. I'm not sure we'll carve jack-o'-lanterns with you, but we will do whatever we can to support anyone who needs a family. And if you need any support, and if you want to join in and provide a family for other people, that's kind of what we do. So we want to continue that. All right. Anything? Oh, Ukraine. We still have our sunflowers for Ukraine. Things are basically just dragging on. One side attacks, the other side attacks. Civilians are still being killed. The Russians are still blockading the grain shipments, which hurts the Ukraine because that's the produce that they sell, but it also hurts the countries of the Middle East and Africa. That's the food they rely on. Ukraine is evidently the grain belt of the world, so to speak. And even though 20 to 30% of their land is now untillable, it's unfarmable because it's full of landmines and explosion holes and military strikes, they still manage to produce within like 10% of what their annual grain production is. The problem is getting the grain out of Ukraine and to Africa and to the Middle East. Instead of the giant cargo ships, they're shipping everything down the Rhine River in little barges, but they're still managing. People are so inventive and so resourceful to get around any problem, and we want to reward them, or we want to thank them for that. All right. One last candle for those thoughts, prayers, fears, trepidations, those things that are difficult in your life that you need someone to share with. We are here. Okay. Children's story. You want to speak first and then do this thing? Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, the children's story, as usual, is not really a children's story. I pulled these pictures off the internet. This is the Flight 93 tower chimes, and I think that's what my little story is about here. We'll see. These are short, but they're kind of informative. We'll see if it'll play. I don't know why they always play at home, but they don't want to play here. Oh, there it goes. No, let's do the other one. Let's see if this one will play. I guess I'm going to have to record them and play them back off my computer instead of online. Because they work before church and they work after church. Is anybody on their cell phone using up our bandwidth?
Oh, wait, mine's sitting on the weather.
I don't think that would do it. It's just weird that every time I try to do this, the last few weeks we've had a lot of trouble with the computer not playing through. Okay, Basically, I'll show you the pictures then, and if they play later, we'll do it later. From now on, I'll see if I can't just record them and play them back. This is the tower at Flight 93. These are individually tuned wind chimes, and they're like giant. They're like 6 feet long and 6 to 8 inches in diameter. But the wind has to be going about 10 to 14 miles an hour before you can hear them. But they did record the sound of it here. It's pretty amazing. And we'll let Kenny talk about that, and then we'll see if we can pull it up later.
Go back to the,
Which one?
go back to the, Arlington Cemetery.
Arlington? Not Arlington, yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
With that one or you
Yeah.
want? Okay.
that one. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to allow me to share my Dark County Veterans Washington, D.C. trip. I learned about the trip back in June, talked to Mike Waymire here in town, found out they were going to have a trip, so I signed up. And then after I signed up, I asked my brother Frank if he and his wife Sarah would like to go along. And they came back with the answer that Sarah would probably not be able to withstand the trip, but she thought he should go. So he signed up to go as well. When we signed up, there was 3 questions, at least 3 questions on the questionnaire. How far can you walk without assistance? 1 block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks. Well, I put down 3 blocks, and so did he. But later in the conversation, he was talking about when he goes to get his mail, lives up on Burkett Road, and the distance is, I don't know, 1,000 feet or so from his house to the mailbox and back, or to the mailbox and 1,000 feet back. And he commented about he's pretty well winded by the time he gets back to the house. So I said you're going to need some transportation while you're up there. So we looked into taking an electric chair, but the veterans crew said that they didn't want to load the heavy stuff on and off the bus, so took a wheelchair. And when my kids found out we were going to take a wheelchair and he was going to ride in it, they warned me not to push him and wear myself out. So anyway, a little later. This is the 4th trip the Dark County Veteran Services Group planned to go to D.C. Tom Pittman is the director, Var Guerin is an officer, and Cindy Bruner is their administrative assistant. Chaz has gone to D.C. on an honor flight, which is an airplane flight from Dayton, a day in D.C. and then back home that same day. So he saw less than half of what we saw in the bus trip that we took, a day up, 2 days there, and then a day back. We had a meeting the 1st of September, and in that meeting we filled out our menus for all the restaurants we were going to visit. And the veterans group sent those menus to the restaurants with our itinerary that shows our arrival time and everything. So they were prepared for us when we got there. The bus trip from Greenville, we left Greenville American Legion. The bus trip from Greenville to D.C. was too long for one driver to make it within his hours allocated for a day's driving. So another driver brought the bus down from Fort Wayne and took us to our second rest stop, where we changed drivers, and that driver stayed with us until we came back from D.C. now. So the bus left Greenville at 5:30 sharp Thursday morning, September 28th. We had 2 rest stops before we stopped in Washington, Pennsylvania for lunch. That second rest stop is where we changed bus drivers, and then that driver brought us the rest of the way. Doghouse Diner in Washington, Pennsylvania is a small diner. They had tables reserved for us. There was 56 people on the bus. 5 of those were from the Veteran Services Group, the 3 officers, 2 commissioners, 1 commissioner serving triple duty. He was a commissioner of the Veteran Services. He's a veteran, and he's the photographer for the trip. His name escapes me right now. I'll get it a little later. But anyways, he said he would be taking somewhere around 30,000 photos, and we will get a flash drive containing 2,000 photos of the trip. When he takes photos, he takes a burst, so he can choose the proper photo and everything. So anyways, we arrive at this restaurant. We go in and get a table. The waitress comes to the table, gets our names, and they bring our food out. It was already prepared, probably already plated, ready for us to come in. The bus trip was fantastically prompt. If our arrival time was 6:45 or whatever, we arrived at 6:45, all through the trip. It was well executed, well planned, well executed. Very nice trip. So after we left Doghouse Diner, we had 2 more rest stops, and at each rest stop, the Veteran Services provided us with refreshments and drinks. The first stop we had donuts. Second stop we had cookies, popcorn, peanuts, pretzels. I don't know what all, you name it and everything. It just they had giant coolers. And dragged those out of the bus every stop, and opened them up and help yourself to the refreshments. So we arrived in Montgomery Village, Maryland at 5:25 p.m. Stop at Lito's Pizza. Same thing there. We get out of the bus, go in, and there's tables set up for us. There's salads on the table. There's breadsticks on the table. And before long, we start bringing pizzas out and put them on a booth beside us. Just help yourself to whatever you wanted and go from there. So then a little later, we arrived at our hotel, the Best Western in Rockville, Maryland. And when we got off the bus there, they issued our shirts that we wore the next day and gave us our room keys. We went up and found our rooms. In the hotel, we had continental breakfast each morning. Continental breakfast consisting of scrambled eggs, bacon, pancakes, potatoes, more or less, you name it, they had it. Juices, coffee, and everything. So, well-fed breakfast and everything. So our first day in D.C., we go to the Pentagon 9/11 Memorial. I don't know if I can find those on here or not, Tim. You have the benches, did you say?
Yes.
Who's been to D.C. before to know what it is I'm talking about? Okay. Have you seen the 9/11 memorials over there? Probably. Okay. The first stop is the Pentagon 9/11 Memorial. And back to this question about how far can you walk unassisted? Where the bus parked, it was a good 3 blocks to the memorial, plus the walking around in the memorial area and then back to the bus. Back to Brother Frank in the wheelchair. We got off the bus. I started pushing him in the wheelchair, and amazingly, it pushed very easily. A lot of flat ground and everything, so I continued to push. I had several offers to help, but I said, well, right now, everything's going great. We'll see you later. So we get into the memorial. The memorial at the Pentagon is a series of stainless steel benches with water flowing under them and lit for nighttime and all. They are in the path of the airplane going into the Pentagon. By the way, on 9/11, I had a nephew that was in D.C. for a business meeting. He was across the street from the Pentagon and saw the plane fly into the building.
Oh my gosh.
So he was fairly close by and everything. So these benches in the memorial, like I said, they're in the flight path of the plane going into the building. It's like a swimming pool diving board. It's mounted at one end with a cantilever out the other end. And in the end of the bench is a name printed in it. If you look at that name and look up and see the Pentagon, that represents a worker in the Pentagon. You turn and face the other direction, look at that name on the end of the bench, and look up and see the sky. That was a passenger on the airplane. This memorial was selected out of 1,100 submissions for the Pentagon Memorial. They're in rows based on age of the individual. The youngest being 3 years old, the oldest being 71 years old. And there are markers goes out to a bench around the memorial with the birth dates of all those victims that's in that column through there. And also around the outside of the memorial is a age wall. Starts out at 3 inches high, representing a 3-year-old, incrementally up to 71 inches, representing a 71-year-old. So lots of thought and planning went into designing that memorial and things. Our next stop was the Air Force Memorial. It's just across the way a little ways. Wasn't a whole lot there. I think it's more or less under development. There was 3 spires into the sky, which represents the missing man formation. And there's several granite stones around with lots of engraving about Air Force history and whatever else. But at that memorial, we formed for a group picture, and you didn't have a picture of that then.
No, I don't know.
But all the pictures of us in our red shirts and things, and the directors were wearing their blue shirts and stuff, so you can make them out in the picture. I'm gonna do a write-up on this trip and everything, so I'll have more pictures and things to show you later on when we get those from the photographer. So after the Air Force Memorial, our next stop was Arlington Cemetery. They chose 4 of the group to participate in laying a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown. Those 4 were chosen as the 4 oldest in the group. The oldest person here, Ken Pence from Greenville, is 92 years old. He served in Korea.
Is he walking?
Yes, he walked the whole trip. Ken Pence, the one on the side, 92-year-old. The one on the checkered shirt is my brother Frank at 86 years old. Myself in the back, I'm 84 and 6 months, and Ray Baeki is 84 and 2 months. So I was not quite the youngest one there. Only 2 laid the wreath, the 2 in front, and the rest of us, we were on the backup crew, I guess you call it. When we arrived, we had our red shirts on, but there's a dress code for laying the wreath, so we had to have other clothes to put on to do that. So we met down at the guards' quarters to be briefed on what we would be doing in the ceremony and such. Got our shirts changed and things, and then we went up to the top of the steps, waiting for the escort to come up and march down to the wreath. The veterans group purchased the wreath. They recommend you buy it from a flower shop there in DC, and they deliver it to the cemetery for the dedication and such. The changing of the guard is every half hour, and our wreath laying ceremony was scheduled for 12:15. So there was a guard change at 12 o'clock, and then we came in at 12:15. There at all was already a wreath at the stone when we got there, so they removed that and put it on the other side of the tomb, and then our wreath is laid in front of the tomb then. So when we arrived at Arlington Cemetery, there's a shuttle bus caravan, I guess you call it, takes you around through the cemetery and all. So we got on the one that was going directly to the Tomb of the Unknown, since we got there fairly close to the time we needed to be there to get ready for the indoctrination and everything. And then after the ceremony, back on that shuttle, it took us back to the visitor center. So after the visitor center, we had our box lunches were delivered to the bus. They had gone through the bus and put name tags above our seats. When we got back to the bus, we had a box lunch from Jimmy John's in our seats with our names on it and everything. So we ate outside at the curb and everything. Then our next stop was the Air and Space Museum. Our guide was taking us around, learned we were from Ohio, and kept saying things like, gee, you're from the Dayton area, the Air Force Museum over there, you have 4 hangars of equipment and such. We only have 1. You know, there's a lot of things you have we'd like to have, but not everybody can have everything. So, but anyways, saw quite a few things in there over the years of the air and space. Saw the Apollo 11 space shuttle, mighty big craft. The Enola Gay, the first plane to drop the bomb on Japan, all this stuff. So then after the Air and Space Museum, we went to Five Guys Diner, had our supper, then back to the hotel for the night. The next day, our first after breakfast, our first stop was the National Museum of the Marine Corps. We go in there and we see a movie of the training that the Marines go through, the different activities of the different units of the Marines and such. Saw the Medal of Honor wall with Private Doug Dickey's picture from Ansonia. He died in Vietnam. A grenade was thrown in their compound and he died on the grenade to protect everyone else. So, Doug Dickey. The next stop was the National Museum of the United States Army. Same thing there. There was a short movie on the training of the Army and different engagements they've been in and conflicts over the years and everything else. Following the Army Museum, we went to the Washington Monument. We were going to be there for 3 hours on our own. 3 hours on our own. We went up the top of the Washington Monument. It's 500 feet, or the elevator was up 500 feet. The monument has got another 51 feet, which you don't have access to, but quite a view out across the Washington area. And then after that, we went down through the memorial area. First was the World War II Memorial, which is right ahead of the reflection pool. There's a name plaque by the monument. Then on the right-hand side is the Atlantic side pavilion. On the there's the Pacific side pavilion, and all around that is names of the countries that participated in World War II. When we got, that evening then we went to Hard Rock Cafe, which is half a block down from Ford Theater, where Lincoln was assassinated, and then across the street is the Peterson House, where Lincoln passed away. And then going back to the motel that evening, we drove back by the memorials there in the mall and returned to our hotel. Someone said that evening, walk 3 blocks. Someone said that evening their pedometer registered 15,000 steps, which calculates about 5 miles. My God, I haven't walked 5 miles in I don't know how long. I haven't walked 1 mile I don't know how long. But anyways, pushing the wheelchair. I had several offers to help push it, but actually, I benefited by pushing the wheelchair. It's like going to the store and pushing a shopping cart. I had something to lean on and help support me and everything. I don't know if I'd have made 5 miles without walking with a wheelchair. But there was only one spot where I had an uphill climb, and that was going up to the Washington Monument. It's a pretty long uphill climb to get up to the monument and everything. And other than that, it was pretty well level ground, easy pushing. And like I say, I benefited quite a bit from pushing that wheelchair. When we got back, I thanked Sarah, Frank's wife, for letting him go. And since he needed the wheelchair, and I pushed him, and made my day a lot better. So the next morning, that's Sunday morning, the day we come back, we leave the hotel at 8 o'clock. Our first stop is Gettysburg Battlegrounds, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And there's a short movie in there on the Battle of Gettysburg and everything else. And then there's a story above the theater is a cyclorama. It's a 360-degree painting, they say. It's as if you're right in the painting, and you can see about 5 miles through the countryside. And it's a movie. Then you see the guns explosion and all the noise and everything else. And when it's over, it's just the picture there. There is a glass window that you can see in front of you, but now I can't explain what the picture is. You can't see a medium that it's painted onto, and there's not a screen out there. You just see for 5 miles across the countryside, whatever it is. Then, back to the day before, we had a box lunch at the Army Memorial. Came, I guess, from their cafeteria or something. But anyways, on Sunday then, our box lunch came from Jersey Mike's, and that was on the bus, in our bus seats, and we ate as the bus was driving from Gettysburg to Flight 93 Memorial. Flight 93 Memorial also As you enter the visitors area and the museum, there's a granite walkway which is in the path of the airplane as it came into the site, and you walk to the end of that walkway and you oversee the field where the plane crashed. They said the plane was flying 560 miles an hour when it hit the ground. Debris field scattered over about 40 acres of land, so quite a large debris area. To mark where the plane hit the ground, they've got a big boulder down there, so you can, in your photos, you can zoom in on that boulder and everything. So then, driving on around down to more of that area, there's a name wall of all the passengers on the airplane. It's a fairly long wall and things. And then Tim had the wind chime tower, Tower of Voices it's called. And yes, there's a wind chime for each of the 43 victims on Flight 93. Yeah. And so far, when the veterans have been there, they have not heard the chimes chiming. There's not been enough wind to make them sound off. So anyways, we leave Flight 93 and we go to Oakhurst Grill and Event Center in Somerset, Pennsylvania. And we have our final meal there. And back to the original part of the trip, it cost us $250 to go on the trip. It said the only expense you're going to have is whatever souvenirs you buy and bring back with you. Well, we did take up a collection for a gratuity for the bus driver, and then we also took up a collection for a gratuity for the veteran staff that planned the trip and everything. But they said they would not take the money; they would use that towards the next veterans trip. So we passed that money out at the restaurant that evening. When we arrived there, our arrival time was 5:30, and we arrived at 5:30. The group went inside, and they were saying they didn't expect us there until 6 o'clock, so it was going to be a little bit of a delay, but it wasn't very long until we went ahead and went in and got our seats. It was a buffet, so we got our seats and everything, and in just a short time, they bring the buffet out, and we're eating it. I'm sure it was not past 5:45. It didn't take very long to get everything ready. And we had a little presentation. The veterans group gave us all a certificate for making the bus trip and all this, and took photos and everything else. So now talking about my kids warning me about pushing the wheelchair, I wasn't sore and stiff at all. Go back to the hotel at night, slept well and everything else. Our bus ride home from Somerset, Pennsylvania, we had one rest stop. That's 2 3-hour hitches on the bus. I was a little more sore and stiff getting off in Greenville than it was the whole trip. Now, talking about being on time and everything, we left Somerset, Pennsylvania at 7:15. Our itinerary said we were going to leave at 7 o'clock. We got this one bus stop where we changed drivers, come back in. Our arrival time back to Greenville was 12:43 a.m. We arrived at 12:47. A lot of that was because as we come up 49, rather than turning and going up 127 bypassing 36 to the Legion, he came in Schweitzer Street through downtown Greenville, and I'm sure that made a difference in the arrival times. So that's the summation of our trip. Like I said, well planned, well executed. I don't know that anything could have gone any better at all. So the lack of photos, I'm going to do a write-up on the trip, write a little story and everything else, and include photographs and everything as we get them from the photographer and everything. So I'll have more to show you a little later on when I get that all put together. Any questions? Yes.
What did you find most impressive?
The whole thing. Really, the whole thing. The 9/11 memorials, I was think was all impressive in the way they were laid out, carrying the memories and everything else. I didn't mention the Flight 93 victims are buried there. What remains they found are buried there on the grounds in Pennsylvania and everything. So they're all there. I didn't hear anything about where the Pentagon victims were buried. I know that probably those bodies were taken back home. By the way, all of those airplanes used in 9/11 were big airplanes, 747, 787s. They were flights going to the West Coast, so they were loaded with jet fuel, 5,000 gallons of jet fuel. So once those planes crashed, you got 5,000 gallons of fuel to burn up, and it's ungodly to imagine what it would have been and everything. I think I read online somewhere that the fires in New York would continue for about 7 days to burn up that fuel and everything. And I'm sure that was a lot of what happened there in Pennsylvania when the plane exploded. Whatever debris there was around there was probably saturated with jet fuel, and a lot of the debris burned up as well. So, in the museum, they had pieces. You could hold several pieces in one hand. I mean, they were just little bits of pieces. I did see something online that there was a larger fragment of the aircraft, not many big pieces that you couldn't carry in your own hands and everything. But the whole trip was just fantastic. I didn't really mention it, but every roadside rest they hauled out these coolers and drinks and something to eat, cookies and everything. They pulled those out when we got back to the hotel at night. Have water in the hotel, and snacks if you wanted. Just well taken care of.
Excellent.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And I think this is such an important topic. If I can get these working, I'll show them later, the videos, either tonight, probably today, afterwards. If not, I'll record them and we'll play them next Sunday, either before church or after church. A lot of information, and you need to actually see those benches there. It's pretty impressive with the cantilever bench with water underneath it and the names. Flight 93 is also a very impressive short video there from the National Park Service. The one thing I was really impressed by in watching the videos, and they talk about that, Flight 93, these in 19, I think 17 out of the 19 were from Saudi Arabia, which we attacked Afghanistan and Iraq, but the people that did it were from Saudi Arabia, which tends to escape people's notice. This was so meticulously planned. Each one of these planes, as Kenny said, was a giant Airbus or a giant multiple passenger going to the West Coast, so full of fuel. They all took off at exactly the same time, so they all were supposed to crash at the same time. Flight 93 was delayed for 15 minutes before they could take off, which was the reason they were still in the air. When the passengers got the news on their cell phones, and this is before you were not allowed to use a cell phone on an airplane, or on the information that came across the TV screens in the airplane about what was going on. These passengers, I think it was 43, 47, in the 40s somewhere, they decided that they were not going to let these terrorists get away with this. They voted to rush the cockpit, and they knew the chances of success were minuscule, but they did not want this plane to crash into the White House or the Congress, which was obviously the target. One of those two places would have been the target. So these people sacrificed their lives knowingly, and they called family and relatives, and said their goodbyes before they died. So,
and I also read that when the terrorists realized the crew was trying to take over the airplane, they rocked the plane back and forth. And actually, when it came down, it was upside down.
Yep.
From what I understand.
Oh my.
Yeah. They were doing everything to keep the crew
They killed the actual airplane crew. They killed the stewardess. They killed the pilot and the co-pilot, slit their throats with box knives, and then locked the door. But they took the beverage cart, and these people did, and smashed through the door. And then they were fighting in the cockpit. And that's when the terrorists knew that they were going to be the passengers were going to revolt against them. The terrorists are the ones that smashed the plane into the ground. So it was just a horrendous.
One thing I didn't mention at the Pentagon Memorial, if there was other family members, victims also, the name that was engraved at the end of the bench, there was a plaque at the bottom with the other relatives that was in the aircraft also, or in the aircraft and the Pentagon. Those names are at the bottom of the bench area, so that you can tie them together, the families together.
Oh, this one's gonna play.
And I think the Flight 93 Memorial is still being constructed because there were some people on our trip said last time they were there, this wasn't here. So there's things
Yeah,
still,
they're still
coming up.
ongoing.
Yeah. And just right out, nothing around it, just right out in the middle of the field.
We've arrived at the Flight 93 National Memorial here in Pennsylvania. Let's go check it out.
That's the grand walkway I'm talking about, looking over the field. Yeah, down there.
We just left the main visitor center. It turns out they just built that visitor center in 2015. I had been here before, but none of this was here. So now we're taking the Memorial Drive Road. We're taking like it's a road that goes to the actual memorial. Or Flight 93. They had a long walkway. You could walk down here. For time constraints today, we're driving down to the actual crash site memorial. Here it is, Memorial Plaque. Tower of Voices is something new too. We're going to go there after we leave here. This is Memorial Plaza.
From the parking lot back to the main wall, here is about a quarter of a mile walk.
This is the Memorial Plaza parking area. They do have restrooms down here. Memorial Plaza crash site. It's up this way.
That's a photograph over the area as the plane crashed. Some citizen took. The plane was
Like this is the
hit
flight
over the
plan.
Cleveland area before they turned to go back to Washington.
Flight
And they were only
93.
about 10 minutes from Washington when they crashed.
Crashed at 563 miles per hour. And this is the little information building that was here years ago. When I was here before the visitor center was built. Building's closed right now. The wall of names is right here. There's the new visitor center where we were just at.
The visitor center, the white building up there.
There are families that visit every year. Families, they had an interview on the news of the family of one of the stewardesses. Every year they go and place a wreath, and really a moving memorial for that family.
Here's the new visitor center on the hill. Sure is beautiful here. visitor center. There's a walkway. It's a quite a long walkway. I think it's over a mile past here. You can see it winding down the hill. And then just over the field right here, on the crest of the field, you can see just the top of the walking bridge. It goes over like a little gully. That brings you down into the Memorial Plaza area. Now, all this was not here when I had stopped years ago. The ranger told me they built that visitor center and these walking paths in 2015 was completed. There's the visitor center.
That's the walkway up above the black area.
These are the wall names.
This is a name wall to passengers on the airplane.
There's not that many names on the wall. I suppose we're all lucky. The brave soul stormed the cockpit and brought the plane down on the bank.
43 passengers on the plane.
Hitting its target, the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. The actual crash site where
Up there at the base of the tree, that's the rock where the plane hit.
the boulder is right there. And this wall sort of protects the debris field. For family members, they have this entryway toward the crash site. This large gate right here goes out toward the crash site. On September 11, 2001, Flight 93 crashed in the field in front, in the field in front, traveling approximately 563 miles an hour. 17-ton sandstone boulder was placed in the field to mark the approximate location of what had been there. And I guess that 17-ton sandstone boulder was placed there just to mark the approximate location of the crash. And the memorial came much later. And we're coming up on the Tower of Voices. This is supposed to be the third and final phase of the Flight 93 National Memorial. I tell you, the National Park Service really did a great job at creating this memorial. Many new improvements were made since I was here early on. And I guess this Tower of Voices is the newest portion. It's supposed to represent the voices of the individuals that perished in Flight 93. And right here, this is taking us again in the Tower of Voices. Voice is a monument 93-foot tall musical instrument. Tower of Voices marks the gateway to and from this expansive living memorial landscape. 40 chimes represent the voices of 40 courageous passengers and crew members who took a vote to come together and fight terrorism on the morning of September 11, 2001. The music of chimes is a living tribute to those 40 men and women. Let's go check it out. So evidently the wind makes a chime. But we haven't heard any chimes yet. Oh, did it? Yeah. Well, there you have it. Tower of Voices. Like 93 now.
We can do without all driving down the street. That's kind of a waste of time. But it's still nice to get an actual picture of what is there. And Kenny's verbal description, I think, really adds that real feel to it, so you have a personal exposure to it. But these things, I think, are more than worth it if you want to take a trip and head east. To stop at Gettysburg, the town is pretty interesting too. There's a lot. The town is almost historical. They've got lots of little shops that were there that they've recreated for the 1860s. Forest Theater is really interesting. So I would encourage everybody to travel to Washington, D.C., travel to the East, and get a taste of what our history is really like. Okay, our offering. As usual, if you can share with something, please do. If you need something, don't hesitate to ask. And for those of you who call online and see our Facebook page, we direct you to Fish and Darke County, the agency that helps the people in Darke County. We do not give out money and pay for electric bills and give you food directly, but we will help you find a source for that. So, okay. Marine Hymn will be our musical offering. Closing hymn is 86, Blessed Spirit of My Life. democracy's benediction. We are democracy, unruly, unfinished, unrelenting. People of rebellious joy taking to the streets, underground resilience, resisting complacence. The pleasure of activism organizing into simple hope. We are democracy. People of principles taking on principalities, witnessing the worth of those called unworthy, justice now gaining ground, integrity of independent existence, extending living democracy in heads, hands, and hearts. We know that democracy can die, ossify, brittle byproducts of bygone idealists, plotting politicians, pirating votes, corporations cannibalizing our care for the world. Look, it can wither, distend, come to an end. Democracy, today we will love you alive, make you ours, make you thrive, and vote as though our hope is on the line. Right, our postlude. I can't read my writing on that one either. Okay. Irving Berlin. Over there. I did remember it. All right. It's late, but I still, if this plays, this was on CBS News, and it's about Arlington Cemetery and its horses. So looks like it's not going to play either. The horses, as you know, I think we talked about that before, have been on the caissons at Arlington Cemetery for years and years, since before World War I. The last year, they have not had the horses. They will start again, I think, this November. For the last year, they've not had the horses drawing the caissons because the people taking care of the horses did not know what they were doing. The horses were tremendously mistreated. They had wounds and sores on their back where the harnesses rubbed. If you notice on some of the processions, the soldiers would ride each one of the four horses out of the two, the caisson.